When I was 18, I enlisted into the Army, thinking it would give me the structure and income I needed. However, 3 years in, I broke my leg and was discharged. Ever since then, I've been in and out of hostels and other sketchy living arrangements trying to find steady work. I lucked out when I found a decent hostel where everyone actually gets their own room, so I moved in. I've been in this hostel for about a year now. I have a nice little room that I can call my own, and everyone else has their own private spaces to do their stuff in. The only shared spaces are the kitchen, bathroom, and the living room, but pretty much everyone stays in their respective bedrooms unless they need something. This is great, because all sorts of people are constantly moving in and out. It's a lot of addicts and homeless folks, so I'm glad I don't have to see whatever weird and/or illegal shit they're up to. I do have one friend, sort of. He lives at the end of the hall, and his story is a lot like mine. We hang out sometimes, but we mostly keep to ourselves. Unfortunately, not everyone is so chill. Recently, this larger old guy moved in, and within the first day, he gave everyone the creeps. I'll just call him the Saw guy, since he was obsessed with the Saw series. He brought with him a small TV and a DVD player, but the only DVDs he had were the Saw movies, and I mean every single one. He set up the TV in the living room, which at first felt like a decent upgrade, until we realized he was going to spend most of his time out in the living room area watching Saw movies. During the day, he was working or doing whatever he did for money, but at night, he would sit in the dark and watch TV alone. It wasn't so much that we hated Saw, but that nobody wanted to go near him. It was honestly weird as hell, and all the other residents thought he was creepy and hated him, but we just had to put up with it and try to ignore him. However, one night I reached my limit. I was trying to sleep, but there were loud-ass noises coming from outside. It was Saw noises, again, but this time it was louder than ever. I tried to ignore it by holding my pillow over my ears to disregard it, only for it to get even louder. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I was done asking nicely. That's when I got up to go out there and make him turn it off. How many times do I... My heart nearly stopped. The noise wasn't coming from the TV. It was coming from behind my friend's door, and he was screaming for help. I sprinted to it and broke through. That's when I saw the Saw guy on top of my friend, stabbing him. I rushed in and grabbed the guy, ripping him off my friend. He got up and turned right back at me. Then he charged with the knife. I was already running out of there, and I made it back to my room, then slammed the door and locked it. It took the Saw guy a few seconds to reach my door, but when he did, he made it seem like it was made of paper. He pounded on it and split the back down the middle. Then he stabbed through it with his knife. I realized I only had a matter of seconds to get out of there. I grabbed my phone and opened my window as far as it could go. I had to throw my phone outside to be able to squeeze myself through, but I got out just in time. When I made it to my feet and looked back, he had just gotten through the door. I knew he wouldn't be able to fit through the window, but I didn't want to give him any time to come around. So I picked up my phone and ran away. After I lost him, I called the police. At the time, I had no clue if my friend was going to make it or not, but tragically, the Saw guy went back to finish the job. In the minutes before the police arrived, the psycho forced him down and cut through his spinal cord to paralyze him, just to sit there and watch for a while before finally taking him out. He didn't try to run away after. He let the police arrest him without putting up a fight. That doesn't make him any less of a monster, though. It wasn't enough for him to just kill my friend, but to torture him first, and to do it inside our home. Nothing has felt right around here since. Only the most desperate people still want to stay in this place after they heard what happened. I'm trying to find someplace else to live, but I feel stuck. I try to forget about it, but whenever a new Saw movie comes out, I can't escape it. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a notorious inmate dubbed the Saw Killer, who has seen his jail term extended after stabbing a prison guard in the neck. Matthew Tinling is currently serving 2 life sentences. He was first jailed in 2013. Tindling had watched Saw 6 on DVD while living at a homeless hostel in Maida Vale, West London, and had proceeded to break into a neighboring room belonging to former soldier Richard Hamilton and stabbed him 17 times before sawing through his spine. Then, as he stood trial for another vicious knife attack on an inmate in 2016, he laughed in the face of a high court judge and showed utter contempt for the court, telling Mrs. Justice Mulder he had been a very naughty boy before his trial began. The 36-year-old is now said to have had another 7 years added to his sentence, meaning he will be jailed until at least 2062, after slashing a guard with a knife he had hidden in his mouth. The attack reportedly took place at the high-security men's prison back in February 2021. The guard needed 18 stitches after the stabbing.
This is a true story. I was desperate, broke, and homeless. I'd been out on the street for a few days, looking for some place that would take me in or someone who would give me work. That's when I saw a flyer tumbling down the street, and out of sheer luck, it was an ad for a job. Supposedly, this rich guy living in a big old house needed someone to clean it. I was never much of a cleaner, but I was willing to do just about anything at that point. It took me a day's worth of begging to scrape up enough cash for a bus ticket, making me afraid I'd end up stranded if it didn't work out. The bus dropped me off. Eventually, I found the house. It was 3 stories tall, across the street from a pharmacy and a few abandoned businesses, but other than that, there was nothing else around. It had taken me so long to get there that the sun was already setting. Not wanting to be out on the street at night, I ignored the sinking feeling in my gut and knocked on the door. After a few seconds, it was opened by a man with a long mustache and protruding cheekbones, wearing a 3-piece suit and a bowler hat. Despite how rich his house and outfit made him seem, he had a musty smell about him. I couldn't place what it was from, but I didn't want to ruin my opportunity by being awkward, so I stated my business.
Good evening, sir. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I'm here to inquire about the cleaning job.
Yes,
Is the position still open?
I could always use the help around here. Come inside.
Great. Just one thing. Is there a room where I can stay as well?
Please, allow me to show you where you shall rest.
With the promise of a bed as well as employment, I couldn't stop myself from entering the house. I knew something was off about it, but I didn't care. I needed it. I stepped through the door into the foyer, where nothing seemed to be too out of place, just a bit dark and dusty. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. All the lights got snuffed out in an instant. I couldn't see a thing as I heard the door lock, then the man's footsteps as he ran into the house. I immediately started shouting at him to cut it out and turn on the lights, but my voice just echoed by itself. I was on my own. As my heart was pounding in my chest, I found my way back to the front door and tried to open it, only for it to be jammed. No matter which way I tried to turn the lock, pull the handle, or ram my way through, it wouldn't budge. I turned around again, taking my phone and turning on the flashlight, now determined to find some other way out before that guy could continue his sick joke any longer. There had to be some window or side door that I could get through. I just had to find it before it was too late. I began walking through the house quickly, wanting to get out before my battery died, which would only take a few minutes. There seemed to be room after room, all connected like a maze with no sense behind it. Each room had been trashed or bloodied in one way or another, with some rooms smelling like a rotting corpse, and others, fresh blood. The severity of the hellscape I was trapped in became more apparent, more nightmarish with every step. Then, I saw the first booby trap, an axe hanging upside down from the ceiling of a narrow corridor. There was blood on the blade as well as the carpet beneath it, so it must have already been tripped by some other poor bastard who snagged a tripwire and took an axe to the face. Knowing the house was full of traps, I tried to proceed more cautiously, but I couldn't slow my breathing, which was running out of control. I passed by it and felt the flies hitting my face. When I turned around to look through the door, I saw a mangled torso rotting on the center rug, but its limbs had been ripped off and were lying in the corners of the room. The sight of it sent me into a panic. That was going to be me if I didn't get the hell out. I forced myself to keep going, but just around the very next corner, he was waiting for me.
Hey! You let me out of this place! You can't keep me here! Do you hear me? Let me out of here now! Leave me alone!
This story was inspired by one of the most notorious serial killers, Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H.H. Holmes. As it turns out, the story of Saul took its cues from the med student serial killer, who ruthlessly tortured and took out countless victims. Holmes is believed to have taken out somewhere between 20 and 200 people. These victims were primarily women, but included some men. He took out many of his victims in a specially constructed home, which was later nicknamed the Murder Castle. He managed to secure a Chicago pharmacy by defrauding the pharmacist and built a block-long 3-story building on the lot across the street and opened it as a hotel. The bottom floor of the castle contained shops, and the top his personal office, and the middle floor a maze of over 100 windowless rooms. Over a period of 3 years, Holmes selected female victims from among his hotel guests and tortured them in soundproof and escape-proof chambers fitted with gas lines to asphyxiate the woman at any time. Once dead, the victims' bodies went by chute to the basement. The same year, Holmes' castle in Chicago burned down, revealing the carnage therein to the police and firemen. His habit of taking out insurance policies on some of his victims before taking them out may have eventually exposed him regardless. Holmes was ultimately apprehended in 1894 and was hanged for his crimes 2 years later. Every single time they come out with a new Saw movie, the most traumatic memory in my life resurfaces. The movies remind me of jigsaw puzzles, which used to mean nothing to me until that hellish night years ago. At the time, I was dating this guy named Steven. It wasn't a super serious relationship. He almost spent more time hanging out with his friends than with me, which was fine. But if Steven didn't have plans with his best friend, he would come over to my place. I barely ever went to his. It was easier to have him over for the night and send him home in the morning. Thinking back on it, I didn't even know Steven all that well. Maybe I was just using him. I certainly didn't have a clue about what was truly going on in his head, though I never felt unsafe around him or anything. Well, not until the night I realized he was the most dangerous person I've ever met. That night, I was sitting on the couch, watching TV for hours as I waited for him to show up. We'd spoke on the phone earlier, and he said he would come over after he got off work. That was around 10. Then he'd usually arrive less than a half an hour later. By midnight, I was getting pissed. I didn't get a call that night, not even a text, so I had no idea what was taking him so long. Finally, at nearly 1 a.m., I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't even sure if it was him at first. He never knocked before. He would always just walk in. I shouted from the couch that he could enter, but he just stood out there silently, annoyed. I got up and looked through the peephole just to make sure it was actually him, and it was. It was Steven, but things took a dark turn for the worst when I opened the door and was mortified to see Steven covered in blood. I need help.
Steven, what the hell happened to you? What did you do?
Just help me, please.
Not until you explain what the hell is going on.
I was in a fight. Come to the hospital with me. I don't want to go alone, okay?
Okay, sure.
It seemed like he was in shock from whatever it was and couldn't tell me exactly. I ended up changing and then got in his car. He started driving. I didn't think he was in a good state to drive, but he was being safer than ever. Just one thing wasn't right with his driving. I had a vague idea of where the hospital was, but I had a feeling we were going the wrong way. I didn't want to say anything. But then I eventually realized we weren't going there at all. We were going to his friend's house. Suddenly, we pulled into the driveway, and I asked why we were at his friend's place. That's when he gave me the creepiest, coldest stare and told me to come inside with him. I was starting to get even more suspicious about what his friend had to do with this, but stupidly, I still walked through that door. Steven led me through the house, which was completely unlit like nobody was home. At the end of a hallway, he opened a door into a bedroom, then pointed me through. Once I was inside, he turned on the lights, and what I saw made me want to cry, scream, and throw up. His friend was dead on the floor in front of me.
Steven, did you do this?
Yes?
Why?
Grab the saw.
What?
Grab the saw! I knew I didn't have a choice anymore. I had to do whatever Steven told me to do, or I was going to be his next victim. He forced me to help him dispose of the body, which wasn't as easy as rolling it up in a rug and taking it to the dump. Steven had other plans. He gave me a saw. He had one too, along with a hatchet he used to take out his friend. Together, we sawed every single limb off the body. Then, we collected various bags and boxes from around his friend's house and packed each part of the body into separate containers. Next, we loaded his car up with the severed remains of his friend and spent the rest of the night scattering them in different locations all over town. Finally, just before sunrise, we were finished. Steven dropped me off at home with instructions to shower thoroughly and burn my clothes. I did what he said, still under his spell of fear, but soon, the body parts were discovered. The case was all anyone was talking about, and as hard as I tried, I couldn't keep silent. I went to the police, knowing they would jail me too. With my confession, they arrested Steven, who still had more secrets he kept from me. This murder of his friend wasn't random. He'd been planning it for months, just like he planned all his previous murders, which he had gotten away with until then. I had been dating a serial killer and didn't have a clue, not before he used me. They dubbed him the Jigsaw Killer for his crimes. After serving some years in prison for my part in the cover-up, I was let out. But I'll never be free from what I did with Steven. Even as he spends the rest of his life behind bars, there are constant reminders of my sins, even in the movies. A bouncer with links to London's underground has been jailed for life after confessing to taking out and dismembering a man he described as his best friend. In a case that became known as the Jigsaw Man murder trial, Stephen Marshall, 38, also admitted to having butchered the bodies of 4 other men while working as a doorman for a London nightclub ran by gangsters in the 1990s. Police will reopen a number of cold cases involving missing people and body parts found in the past 15 years. Described as both charming and highly volatile, Marshall will serve a minimum of 36 years for taking out Jeffrey Howe and then scattering his body parts across 2 counties before emptying his bank account and selling his possessions. Marshall's 21-year-old girlfriend, Sarah Bush, was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months for helping Marshall cover up the crimes. It was alleged that Marshall had the intention of taking out convicted S-offenders in an act of vigilantism, using the names and addresses of convicted offenders retrieved through searching public available offender registries in the US. Marshall was drove to the house of 2 convicted offenders, took them out, and then the unthinkable to himself in Boston, Massachusetts, as police were stopping the bus he was on.